moved them.
So?
Well,
it's not like they took an existing fan base and moved them.
Correct. None of these teams are Las Vegas. So let's talk about Las Vegas. Okay. Somehow Las Vegas just kind of came breezing in the door last week and started talking a big talk about getting a team there. I'm going to go ahead and misquote this information, so feel free to tell me I'm wrong on our Twitter feed.
I'm gonna take out the part where you said misquote, so you sound even more silly.
Awesome. I'm gonna keep mentioning it for the next 10 minutes so that it just you can't do it. Like, hey, remember that time when I said I was being misquoted? So I think it was the mayor of Las Vegas. I'm gonna go with that. Let's call him the president of Las Vegas. He said that it's gonna happen. Like, he came out pretty definitively and said that things were in advanced negotiations and that they were looking to build a stadium, and it just kind of seemed to happen really fast. But then articles that supported it came out pretty quickly, and so it seems like overnight they suddenly built steam on something. I don't know how realistic it is. Obviously there's a lot of concerns about weather and about professional gambling, and there's a lot of things that you could argue against suddenly making Las Vegas number 24, but could it be number 25 through 28? Perhaps.
Yeah.
I think we've seen a lot of success with previous Las Vegas franchises. For instance, the Las Vegas Outlaws, sure, they finished at the bottom of the XFL, but they had a lot of heart.
And to be fair, they didn't have a lot of time in the XFL to prove something and come back.
Yeah, small sample size.
That's right.
All I'm saying is that they had star player He Hate Me on the field, and they knew how to make it work.
He played in the Super Bowl, by the way. He Hate Me did.
The Super XFL Bowl?
No, he played in the Super Bowl.
Wow. What did we call the XFL championship?
It was the $1 Million Game.
The $1 Million Game presented by Doritos?
I think that's exactly correct.
So that's Las Vegas, guys. That's all I have to say about it. I'm clearly ill-informed, but I'm trying to bring that misinformation to the masses. So
Can I talk to you about St. Louis? Do you have time to talk about St. Louis?
Well, before we move off to Las Vegas, I will make one more point for Las Vegas. UNLV has some very good fan bases going for them. They have some of the best student sections in the country. So in terms of building a fan base in Las Vegas, I think you have potential there.
Now, when you say UNLV and their fan base, are you talking their gridiron football team?
Their basketball team is more known for
So their indoor winter schedule sport is doing very well.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that we're clear on the differences.
I can tell there's no mocking tone in your voice at all right now. It's very straightforward. Yeah, they're doing great.
I will say a lot of soccer people really like basketball.
That's fantastic. My main argument is that I have regularly made trips to Las Vegas in July for a couple of years, and it's maybe the worst place on the planet during that time.
Don't they have air conditioning?
Stop going.
Chris,
you keep coming back for more. Why won't they?
How am I going to get further into debt on horses if I don't keep going?
Why don't you subscribe to our sister podcast /horses? You do better.
I don't think it's /horses. I feel like /horses is a very different podcast.
Like pony betting on the horses.
Las Vegas is hot, guys. That's what I'm saying.
Got it.
Cool. Let's move on.
Bring it home.
Are there more topics? Oh, Breck Shea.
Wait.
We got to talk Camille, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Camille. Shamil.
All right. Pete, hit it.
Yeah.
Come on, Camilo.
All right, some more misinformation from Pete. This guy used to play for the Whitecaps, and
that's not misinformation.
Not yet, it isn't. You
Give him a
wait.
second.
That's right. Hold on to your hat, Ian. It's coming. So he made statements in the Vancouver press and national Canadian press about how he was so happy to be in Canada and he was going to stick around and try to earn citizenship, and everybody was super excited, including Dennis, about him playing on the national team for Canada, and maybe they would win a game or two. And then he just shat on all of that and went to Mexico for, supposed millions of dollars. Ian, what was the name of that team he went to?
Querétaro.
Goddamn right it was. So he went down there, and they have had serious financial instability. Here's the misinformation. I think they were bought by the league. That might not be right, but in any case, they're not paying their players.
Wait, they were bought by MLS?
No, they were not. No, I think
buying teams in Mexico now?
We fucking should. Let's just annex them. Let's go ahead and start another Mexican-American war. We're gonna annex some teams.
I know, we haven't had one in like 160 years.
Yeah. Well, this is where we're gonna start. So they're not paying their players. They're financially insolvent, and so there's the storyline of him coming out in the press and making comments about wanting to go back to Vancouver, which I'll admit is a little bit interesting because the fans have basically sworn off him and cursed his name since he left. So I do think that's an interesting storyline. But a lot more interesting is the lack of transparency in MLS and how his return would be affected. So there's the argument.
So it's the terms here. What I've heard is that it's the terms of the transfer, and that since Vancouver transferred him to Querétaro, but Querétaro can't pay the transfer fee, they're going to miss payments. The transfer itself can be voided, and his contract reverts back to Vancouver.
But can they afford him?
What?
Can they afford him?
Right, that's the other issue, right? So they've got new DPs, and not only can they afford them, do they want to? So the rights would go back to them. They could potentially
Toronto has Julio Cesar and Michael Bradley and Jermaine Defoe and Gilberto all playing on the same team. I think Vancouver can afford.
But Toronto.
But that's a loan, though, right?
Toronto made that happen with a lot of financial wrangling. I don't know if the Whitecaps are set up for that right now because they picked up,
they just released Kenny Miller.
Everything.
They did release Kenny Miller. That's a good point. But further speculation, Ian. I mean, so we don't know for a fact whether they made payments. If they didn't make payments, what the process of voiding those terms are. I mean, that certainly seems to be the most logical to me. But again, the lack of transparency.
I think that's why Camilo is talking up Vancouver now, is because he knows about that. He knows that he's going to end up back in Vancouver anyway, just by default. And so he's like, well, maybe I should make amends and say nice things about Vancouver now.
But is it a little more complex than that? Let me give you this scenario. So let's say that they can void, those terms. Do they just own those rights, or do they have to pay him the contract he was on? Because if that's the case, maybe that's why he's talking up Vancouver. Because if I'm Vancouver and I don't have to pay him what we were paying him before, maybe I'm interested. If I have to pay him a ton of money, maybe I sell him to Chivas.
So the way I understand this, from having played Football Manager, is that
experts coming in right now, guys.
Better than FIFA is all I'm saying in terms of when we're basing our info on video games, but it's still not. Go ahead.
Is that when you buy a player or you sell a player, then when you buy a player, you negotiate the contract rights for them. It's not like trading in the NBA where you're trading for a contract. The old contract is pretty much torn up, and you're buying the rights to negotiate with him.
Does he enter into a free agency of sorts at that point? If that's the case, if the deal doesn't go through,
if he doesn't like it, then the transfer is void, and he goes back to the team he was with in the first place.
So would he revert to his old contract?
To his old contract in MLS, or his contract in Querétaro?
MLS. If his current contract becomes void, does he revert to his previous contract in MLS? You are a MLS contract lawyer, right?
Yes, I am. I'm next in line to become commissioner. Actually, that's how that happened. No,
well, I think our friend Jeff Ross might have something to say.
Oh, you're right. I'm third in line. That's right. I gotta pull some Game of Thrones shit to get onto the.
So I think what I was trying to say earlier when I accidentally just tumbled off into an old mumble fit is that Toronto has their players via a lot of allocation money magic that I don't know that the Whitecaps have that same allocation money at their fingertips that Toronto did to make their 4.5 DPs possible.
Well, they don't have to pay Kenny Miller anymore. That helps.
Yeah, but so who are their DPs now then?
They have Matthias Lava is
right.
one.
You've got who's technically on loan, right?
Who's technically on loan? No shit. We talked about this like the second or third episode, and Dennis knew. But
well, because he's an intra-league loan, right? But was it more of a loan to purchase? I don't remember how that conversation went.
I don't remember either. It's whatever he is. I think I really do feel like he was sold to.
Yeah. Oh, we thought it was going to be a loan, but then it turned out to be a sell. Wasn't that what it was? Like we expected it to be a loan, and then the terms ended up being a sell instead.
Yeah, perhaps.
I don't know. They also have Pedro Morales.
Yeah, is he a DP?
He is a DP.
Okay, what about that Fernandez guy?
Fernandez guy.
It's like Christian Fernandez.
I don't rightly know.
Okay. Well. Cool. It's a good thing we run an informed podcast.
Wow.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Chris, I'm glad you're back. You can tell us if the Whitecaps player Christian Fernandez is a DP or not.
Christian Fernandez, isn't he a young DP?
That sounds right. Let's go with that.
Sure. Those count, right?
It's definitely more information than Ian and I came up with in 30 seconds of silence.
So the young DP, I think he's a young DP, but I can't tell you for sure. If he is, they do count as a DP, but they hit the salary cap less.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But still a DP slot.
Correct. It does still take up a DP slot, but it's just less cap hit.
But you can use allocation money to pay that down to not a DP slot, and then open up.
The allocation money that they don't have, according to Chris, is what we're going to use.
I made up that the Whitecaps didn't have allocation money, so in this fantasy world we've created.
To be fair, MLS makes up who has how much allocation money, pretty much, right?
Absolutely.
They distribute allocation money to all the teams based on specific factors, and it exists for a reason. And then they trade it around amongst themselves. But the thing is, we the fans never know how much they've traded. So
which sucks fucking ass because I want a goddamn MLS trade machine.
So
seriously.
Yeah.
Well,
so the players' rights were traded for allocation money, but we don't know if it was $2,000 or $2 million.
I feel like everyone knows less about the Whitecaps for having listened to this, so it might be time for us to move on.
All right, we got one last topic before we make our bold predictions. Let's talk some Brek Shea.
We have two more topics.
Two more. I only see one.
Well, we also have another interview.
We have one more topic and one more interview before we move on to our bold predictions. Let's talk Brek Shea.
Brek Shea.
I like him.
Magical unicorn of a man.
Yeah.
So
the rumors started with Toronto, which I thought was interesting, and have moved back to Dallas. So.
Well, only because he's training in Dallas.
Right. But he's also from there.
Yeah, exactly. So that doesn't mean shit.
Right. But yeah, I mean, to Chris's earlier point, does Toronto have the money to pay Brek Shea? I mean, where's that going to go?
I don't think so, unless they're paying Brek Shea for the way in which he has played instead of the way in which he was promised to play.
That is a fair Fair point.
Well, when he comes back, does he become a DP? He has to, right? If he's picking who he's going to, otherwise he has to go to the allocation order, unless.
Well,
MLS
I mean, he might
MLS
go to the
doesn't help out
allocation
with the
order.
transfer.
Unless
It gets
does
fun.
Dallas still own his rights? Did they get a transfer fee when he left or not? We don't know the history of every transaction in the league, right?
Yeah,
Shit.
totally.
No,
Was
they
he sold?
did. They
He
sold
was
him.
sold to Stoke, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if they sold him, then he would be a free agent, and he would either have to go through the allocation process or the MLS would have to make up some rules for him.
Well, so the current rules that have been made up would be a key national team player, which I would argue he's not.
I don't think you could argue Breck Shea as a key national team player.
Yeah. So
Yes, you
then
can.
we would look
Billy did
at
it with Moe too. But they didn't.
Yeah,
I mean, they weren't right, but they argued that.
Oh, sorry. You could argue it, yes.
but I mean, maybe
You could win that
Moadu wasn't in favor